Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be focusing on multiplying radicals. We want to show that mastery in class by scoring at least a 70% on the exit ticket. Hopefully you have the note sheet in front of you. If you don't, take out a separate sheet and we'll get you a fresh copy tomorrow. Now, the difference when we are multiplying radicals versus adding and subtracting is you don't have to completely simplify them before you multiply them. What you want to do is take the coefficient times the coefficient, so the number outside the radical, and multiply those. Then you're going to multiply the numbers inside or under the radical, and then you can completely simplify your answer. So if I look at my first problem, I don't have any coefficients besides 1, and I have two numbers under the radical. So I'm going to multiply them, and since they're under the radical, I'm going to keep them under the radical. Well, if I do that, I get 48. Now I can simplify it down. I know I'm circling pairs because it's a square root. And since I have two groups of 2, 2 times 2 gives me 4, and I have a 3 left over. So my final answer is 4 times the square root of 3. And again, you can use the calculator to check yourself. Type in square root of 8 times square root of 6, you're going to get a decimal. Then type in 4 times the square root of 3. You should get the same decimal out. If we look at the second example problem, I have 7 times the square root of 5 times negative 2 square root of 15. First things first, I have to multiply my coefficients. Well, 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. Then I need to multiply what's underneath my radicals. And it's going to stay underneath the radical. 5 times 15 gives me 75. So now from here, we need to simplify our radical down. Not 5. Again, I know I'm circling pairs because it's a square root. So the square root of 75 is equivalent to 5 times the square root of 3, but we're already multiplying it by the negative 14 that was our coefficient, and negative 14 times 5 gives me negative 70 times the square root of 3. If we look at our third example, again, we want to start by multiplying the coefficients. In this case, I have a coefficient of 4, and technically there is a 1 there, so it stays 4. If I look at my radical symbols, even though it's the cube root, we're going to do the same thing, and it just stays underneath the cube root symbol, so it becomes a cube root of 576. From there, we need to simplify it down. And if you're not sure when you get big numbers like 576, yes, we can divide by 2, but if you notice, we multiplied 3 times 192 to get it, so I can do 3 and 192. You can break it down however you want. You don't have to do it in the same order that I do it. If you noticed it was 2 right off the bat and did that, that's fine as well. Now, if we look, because we're doing the cube roots, we need to circle triples this time. So I have a group of 2's here, and I have a group of 2's here, and I have 2 3's left over. So if I have 2 groups of 2, that's 4, and I have 3 left over, so 3 times 3. But I also need to multiply it times my 4 that was in my original problem. Well, 4 times 4 gives me 16 times the cube root. 3 times 3 gives me 9. So your final answer becomes 16 times the cube root of 9. Make sure you don't lose that coefficient that's out in front once you start simplifying. You need to make sure it multiplies all the way through. Now, if we look at our last one, there's parentheses here, but we're going to treat this just like a normal equation that we would solve. We can't combine anything that's in the parentheses because they don't have the same radicals, so they're not like terms. So we need to distribute the square root of 5 through. Well, 4 doesn't have any numbers underneath the square root, so it just becomes 4 times the square root of 5. Square root of 5 times square root of 10 is the square root of 50. Now that we've distributed, we can simplify. The square root of 5 doesn't simplify, but 50 does. And again, I know I'm circling pairs because it's a square root. So my answer, I have 4 times the square root of 5, doesn't change, doesn't simplify down, plus 5 times the square root of 2. Because no numbers underneath the radical symbol are the same, that means we can't combine the like terms. In this case, our final answer is just 4 times the square root of 5 plus 5 times the square root of 2. Please bring your notes and any questions you have to class tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you then.